What seems too expensive but is really worth the price? Story 1. If you fly, even occasionally, noise-canceling headphones are worth every penny. With just the noise canceling on without playing any music, it significantly softens most sounds. When you listen to music/videos/whatever, with the noise canceling on, you can't hear anything else, even crying babies. Story 2. Not really that expensive, but a good shower head. Even if you rent, swapping out the default shower head for one that will help with low pressure is a life changer. Swap it back when you're moving out. When I was renting, money was tight, but it is a necessary splurge. Story 3. I'm going to get a lot of pushback, but Gelez. They're a medical device you wear on your face. It's like if you had prescription shoes, they have to be comfortable, stylish, and work properly, all while lasting a year or two. It's worth it to get quality if you can. Bargains tend to follow the Sam Vimes boot problem, to continue to shoe comparison, though I'm glad they exist for people who couldn't otherwise afford them, and as backups for folks who wear contacts primarily, or who have big RX changes and can't use last year's Geelys as a backup. Story 4. My answer is always the same for this. High-quality things between you and the earth. High-quality mattress bed, quality shoes, quality socks, quality tires. The first two are actually healthcare items. You won't realize how bad your current sleep is until you have great sleep with your back and neck properly supported. Similarly, you won't realize how much your posture is affected by your footwear until you try a day on your feet in quality footwear. Socks made of appropriate material, wool varieties, not cotton, make a difference in comfort. Good tires might just save your life. Every driving characteristic about your vehicle, including the ability to stop, is governed by the connection to the road, which is the tires. Story 5. I'm usually a cheapskate, but experience has taught me that some things are worth spending money on. For example, car wash vacuum cleaners. So worth it to spend $1.50 or whatever to use one rather than trying to use your own vacuum cleaner. And they get your car cleaner much faster than dragging out your home vacuum to try to clean your car with. Electronics. Buy them new from brand name shops. It isn't worth HLing to save $10 somewhere and getting something that doesn't work or doesn't have a reasonable return policy. Household help. If you can afford it, get someone to come in and clean your house on a regular basis so it stays always clean without you having to do anything. Education. Now this is a big one and far more could be written about it. Obviously, not all education expense is worthwhile, so I'm not necessarily referring to a college degree or whatnot. But educating yourself, or especially educating kids if you have them, can return dividends throughout their life. Story 6. Maybe a little niche, but plumbing fixtures. This will be US-Canada specific. The plumbing fixtures you get a plumbing supply house or showroom like where plumbers shop are better quality than the ones on the shelf at big box stores, like Lowe's and Home Depot, even if they're the same name brand, like Kohler, Delta, Moen, etc. Both supply house and big box store fixtures are better than the random crap you find on Amazon. Supply house. More BR, heavy duty, last longer. Generally use interchangeable internal parts that are cheaper, easy to find, or free with their warranty. You also have a person you can call if something goes wrong. Big box. More plastic, made to be cheaper, often have more issues, sometimes have cheaper, harder to find internal parts. If something goes wrong, you'll have to call the manufacturer. Amazon, online, much more cheaply made, maybe not certified to sale in the US, Canada, meaning they may contain harmful things like lead or other prohibited heavy metals that can poison you. Parts will be impossible to find when they inevitably start to leak. There's nobody to call and some plumbers won't even install them. Story 7. A good wheelchair. Wheelchairs in general are expensive, but having a brand new one with smooth wheels that rolls smoothly and without excessive effort is so beyond worth it and saves so much energy and accidents if you have the good fortune to get one. Story 8. Mage once in a while, full-body health checkup once a year, recliner seats in multiplex top variant of a car as opposed to mid-level variant, noise cancellation headphones, expensive screen guard for mobile phone, expensive but super comfortable walking running shoes, super comfortable mattress, back and neck rest for car seats, buffet meal at a luxury 5-star hotel once in a while. I do it every B-day. Story 9. All clad or any 3-ply, steel pots and pans. I finally convinced my husband, who does most of the cooking, we should replace our inexpensive ones when a set went on sale 5 years ago. And I can't count the number of times he said, "Why did we wait so long? They heat more slowly but hold heat better so you don't have to turn the heat up as high, so food cooks more evenly and doesn't burn easily." A Cuisinart 14-cup food processor. We use it to make fresh hummus in seconds, way cheaper than store-bought and tastier. We use it to quickly prep veggies for fried rice, roasting, stews, soups, etc., and to whip up feta, garlic, and other dips and pesto. We didn't think we'd use it as much as we have. KitchenAid stand mixer. We bought the mini for space reasons. We don't use it as often as the food processor, but it's completely changed how we bake. Cakes, cookies, pastries, yeast doughs, custards, meringues, all turn out better than with a hand mixer. We make a Basque cake that we could never get the texture right. The first time we made it after getting the stand mixer, it came out perfectly. Attachments make fresh pasta, tomato sauce, and grinds meat for burgers, meatloaf, and sausage. ETA. I've only used KitchenAid brand, but the most important thing is the motor power and quality. What isn't? We bought a 4QT and a 6QT Lodge brand enameled cast iron Dutch oven, and after 15 years, they're still perfect, at 1/4 of the price of the same size Le Creuset pieces. Story 10-meter Botox. I tried facial mage, acupuncture, and a mouthguard. I still wear the mouthguard, but with the injections, I actually have a good night's sleep. Sometimes I even have days in a row of excellent sleep. It's hundreds of dollars and needs to be done 3 times a year, but the sleep is worth it. Without sleep, everything is terrible. Story 11. Clothes that are made well with a slow fashion versus fast fashion mission in mind. My favorite clothing brand sells their wool button-downs for about $120. Some would say that's way too much to spend, but it's beautifully made from recycled clothing. Good for the earth. Weather-resistant, simple but elegant. And if it rips or tears, they will repair it. Or if it is not repairable, they will send a new one. This is a lifetime guarantee on the clothing I buy there. I don't buy extremely often, but investing in ethically sourced and produced clothing is really worth the price in my opinion. I think repairing clothing versus just throwing it away and buying a new one is the proper idea behind well-made clothing. Not a 10-year guarantee, but lifetime. They also take care of their works, and I do care very much about the conditions under which my clothing was made. Story 12. I might get downvoted for this, but I hope I make my point effectively. I buy art, handbags, and jewelry that appreciate over time, in case I fall on hard times and need to liquidate on short notice. One art piece I sold for double what I paid for it when I lost my job once, and it covered the bills for the month. I've since replaced it with a much larger version, and that has appreciated significantly as well. A handbag I bought less than a year ago was a limited edition LV, and it's selling for triple now on the secondary market, $4K to $12K. If you actually buy things with the resale value and appreciation in mind, it's a smart investment. Plus, you're not filling up landfills with cheap that falls apart after 6 months. I tell people about some of the things I've resold for double or triple what I paid for it, and they either get really excited for me or they get mad and gripe about how they could never afford to do that. Luckily, there's way more of the former than the latter. I bought a big house and it's appreciated over $150K since July 2023. And I am literally not trying to brag. I'm just trying to share my thought process and experiences. Make your spending have potential for good returns. Story 13. A good mattress. Spent thousands on mine and my husband was pissed. He's never slept better. His body doesn't hurt. And we're both nicer people because we now get a proper, comfortable night's sleep. First time in my whole life, and I hope to never have to go back. Story 14. I moved countries about 7 years ago. Everything was sacrificed so my partner could be with her family. It meant I started over career-wise. I put every element of my life on lockdown and focused on speed-running grown-up life to reestablish myself. Bought a house, renovated, and worked 70-hour weeks to build an emergency fund. Last year, I spent $5K EUR on a new bed. It took 4 months to come, but let me tell you, it was worth every penny. I sleep well. I have no aches or pains. I look forward to sleeping every day. I now sleep a solid 8 HRs plus. So not only do I physically benefit, but I have less stress and anxiety. It changed my life after I changed my life. Story 15. Travel insurance. It's not that expensive if you travel semi-frequently. You can get a whole year coverage. If you don't travel often, you can buy one-time insurance. So many of the complaints either here or elsewhere would easily be rectified with travel insurance. I got sort of quarantined in hospital in Tokyo. It was well before COVID. Essentially, I had bed bug bites, but also food poisoning. Add itchy and covered in bites to sweaty and vomiting, and it looks really evil and contagious, LOL. I didn't blame them by any means. It was something like 3 days or 2 nights, 3 days kind of thing. Cost me just over $2,000 Canadian. Everything other than $4 for soap of all things was covered by the travel insurance. Without it, I would have had to eat that cost. Lots of credit cards have some insurance, but I prefer having a standalone policy because I know it works. Story 16. Getting home renovations done by a reputable contractor. Note, I went on to IT work and am retired, so I don't have a dog in this race, but do have sympathy for workers and small businesses. My first job out of college was as an office manager at a small interior construction company. They would gut out a space and put in a restaurant, office, whatever. I wrote all the checks, kept all the books, schmoozed with all the subcontractors. When you hire people to work at your house, you are going to think, Jesus, this is ridiculous. When you see the invoice, here's the thing. It's a 10-person operation. There is rent on an office. The things that need to get paid for are rent on the office and, if needed, a warehouse, liability insurance, workman's comp, unemployment insurance, licensing fees and training, the person who answers the phone, and not just your calls, but also calls to and from subs and suppliers, bookkeeping, office supplies, materials, the boss's salary, the person who invested a lot of money into licensing and getting the thing going. The workers, they deserve a living wage. Trucks to transport workers, tools, materials, time in transit. The workers should get paid for time spent in traffic getting to the job site. I'm sure I am missing something as it's been decades, but I will always remember that. And I will reiterate that the workers deserve a living wage. Also, pull your permits. I sat in a permit office so I could save some money pulling a permit on my own and listen to a permit officer help a homeowner revise a job to make it safe for the homeowner and her family. Building codes are written in blood. Story 17. This one is going to sound so mundane, but pencils Ticonderoga #2 pencils are nothing. I do a job that requires a lot of writing in pencil and erasing, and while I use Bic mechanical pencils most of the time, having good pencils are worth it, especially if your department insists on buying the cheapest crap for office supplies. I buy my own stuff. Story 18. This may be real unpopular, a wedding. Before anyone jumps to conclusions about how it's a terrible investment, give me one sec. I would pull myself into the group of people who believed weddings were an absolute waste of money. It was something I just truly never understood why people did it, because of how expensive the wedding industry is. I hated the thought of spending thousands upon thousands of dollars for one day, let alone for a white dress. I would always think of other ways money like that could be spent and what my partner and I would do with it. Fast forward, and now we are engaged to get married September 2025. We are in the thick of wedding planning as we decided to go forward with a wedding. I'll continue with saying that we have had some help with my family in particular. We are not holding anyone liable for helping us pay, and we're incredibly grateful. When we began deciding on what we were going to do, we tossed around a slew of ideas. As we continued to think, and I thought really hard about what it is I wanted to do, I really wanted to have my white dress moment. This moment can look like anything, but I wanted to feel like a bride, and to me that vision was of a wedding, being surrounded by all of our friends and family. Of course, we could have done that in Europe, where we wanted to elope just the two of us, but my parents and his parents are still very much alive. Not everyone can travel that far, and the thought of getting ready on my own in a foreign country sounded less and less enticing. All of this to say that it's okay to want a wedding. It's okay to spend money to have a wedding. It's still possible to be frugal about it, or you can go all out. It will cost money, and that's something we had to be okay with. We gave ourselves a long engagement in order to pay things off as we go. It's also okay to not have a wedding. You have to do what makes you and your partner happy, regardless of what anyone has to say about it. Money comes and goes. This is a memory we will cherish forever, and you can't put a price on the core memories you make. Story 19. A lot of people have already mentioned the obvious: shoes, tires, and mattress, the things that hold you up, and preventative medical attention. I'll add one more: a decent air filter at home. I suffered for years growing up from horrible allergies. Once I got put on my own, I started to buy the things that would make a dramatic improvement in my life. And one of the more surprising was just eliminating some of the household allergens. I sleep better and get sick so much less now. It is truly a game changer. Story 20. Near any appliance that automates a task for me. I have chronic pain, usually low-level aches but constant, and joint disorders that will worsen with age, unfortunately, and am an extroverted busy bee. So keeping up with housework and maintenance can be a literal pain for me to balance along with my social life and projects. I hate chores. I'd rather work to afford an appliance that will pay for itself in time saved, convenience, and often my sanity via pain prevention, and instead be able to go live life. I say it all the time, but my countertop dishwasher, RoboVac, and electric canapreneur are kick and let me lead the life I want to have. In-house washer and dry for laundry also allows me the immense privilege of privacy and convenience to launder my fabric items that I'd otherwise have to plan to allocate precious time, energy, and money around packing and schlepping my stuff to a public laundromat and hoping there's enough machines and time to get everything washed and dried. I would be absolutely miserable without my lovely house robots. Recently, I got a litter robot so I could justify having a third cat, and it's a dream, basically. I just empty a drawer and replace a trash bag every 2 days. No fuss and no muss. And my kitties get a fresh pan of litter to step into every single time. Previously, I was having to scoop 2 litter boxes several times a day and then empty and deep clean the pans every week to maintain them and keep the odor to a minimum. But now I just push a button with my foot if I want it to run in between uses again. It's so nice. Literally everyone wins. I also put a dehumidifier pack in the drawer which has charcoal filters, and it's so awesome. The thing has easily paid for itself in the reduction in litter use too, because it's self-sifting. My air purifier tower and dehumidifier unit have also improved the overall air quality in my house, which is important when you have asthma, pets, and live in a state consistently on fire. And minimal dusting. One more chore mitigated. Story 21. A rule of thumb is to buy quality items that separate you from the earth and to invest into things that you can't replace and must have. I bought a few pairs of Nick's boots and have been praising them every time someone asks. I did some research into mattresses and ended up on Avocado due to their good reviews and what they make their mattresses out of. I drive for a living and want my vehicles to do what I ask, so I invest in good tires that secure myself to the road. I make sure to get regularly checked out health-wise because I need to have a working body to live my best. These seem too expensive at first, but have one fail on you at the wrong moment. I've had back pain from a terrible mattress. I've had a whole host of foot problems due to poor shoes. I've been in accidents due to my tires failing on me unexpectedly, and I'm dealing with health issues because I thought I was invincible. Lessons learned. The upfront cost is cheap in comparison. Story 22. The ad-free version of services. Ads work, and they work on everyone, including you. No, you won't actually remember to hate and avoiding buying from that one company whose ads you hate, because at some point you're going to forget about the annoying ads, but you'll still remember that you've heard of the brand before. Then you'll pick that brand because I've heard of them, I don't remember where, but that seems more legitimate. It's very hard to know exactly which ads work on who, but on the whole, advertising gets people to spend more money and buy more things. If ads cost more than they made in revenue, companies wouldn't spend so much on advertising. Reducing your exposure to advertising will reduce the degree to which you are convinced that you need to buy things. And when you do need to buy things, it will help you make better decisions without the influence of brand marketing. Not everyone can afford the ad-free version of things. If possible, I suggest you just give something up rather than use an ad-supported version. Being able to afford an ad-free experience is like Vime's boots theory, but for your brain. Story 23. I used to work at a fire station but was not a firefighter. I did wear a uniform, station wear, that included safety boots because I often had to go through the truck bays. When I got hired, I was given a chit for boots. I asked what brand most people there used, and the answer was an immediate Uggs. I figured if it's good enough for these people, and damn if they weren't the most comfortable bit of footwear I've ever owned. Felt like I was floating on clouds every time I went to work. Cost around $250 CAD, which is easily triple I've ever paid for footwear. But now I fully understand why shoes is not where you skimp. Story 24. Phone cases and screen protectors. Like OtterBox, they're normally so ugly and expensive and you're lucky to find a good one. But goddamn, I've dropped my phone from incredible heights onto corners of stuff. Concrete, water, all of it. My phone is still in perfect condition after 4 years. Story 25. Good socks. I grew up with throwaway socks as an afterthought. Pair after pair wearing out. Never gave it much thought. Worked outdoors in the cold and would try things like doubling up or wearing bulky socks, which just cuts off circulation and makes you sweat. Now I buy brands like Darn Tough, which breathe in the summer and insulate in the winter, are not overly bulky in the process, and last year's with a lifetime guarantee. Smartwool are decent as well, but they wear out faster. Either way, a good pair of socks is an investment. Story 26. If you're getting into miniature painting for the first time, a primer and 000 paintbrush are a must. The primer is the first coat to make sure the later paint sticks, and the 000 brush is for painting the really tiny things. As far as paints themselves go, it depends. For example, $12 for a set of 15 acrylic paints with bright colors from Target are perfect if you want your miniatures colored, like it would fit in a cartoon. Story 27, phys ed teacher here. I average between 20K and 25K steps per day, depending on my calls. I've bought Asics Nimbus shoes for the last 4 years and purchase again when needed. They are pricey, but very worth the soft, cushy, luxurious feel. Feet and knees happy at the end of the day. I recommend to anyone who wants a max cushion shoe. Story 28. I know it sounds lame, but a quality vacuum. One of my first big credit card purchases in my 20s was a Miele canister vacuum. I did tons of research because I refused to get a couple $100 vacuum that would be not worth fixing, just toss it in 3 years. I've had this vacuum for about 15 years, just changing the bag and filters as needed. Probably 5 years ago, the automatic cord dealie broke. Had a vacuum sewing machine, repair person, replace the mechanism for like $75. Best $800 purchase. I'm not an ad, I just hate Dyson that much, lol. Story 29. Good cold weather clothing. Talking name brand stuff like Arc'teryx, North Face, Columbia, etc. Arc'teryx is pretty objectively the most expensive, so if you can at least find new cold weather gear that has Gore-Tex for true waterproofing, definitely spend on it. That, and proper insulation and/or good base layers. Being properly dry in the cold makes all the difference in the world, and, having been someone who's experienced this, old hand-me-downs from older siblings or parents usually aren't up to snuff and end up making winters miserable. Story 30. Herman Miller office chair. I bought a used 2005 model in 2020 for £300, and that thing will outlive me. I work from home 3x a week and also use it for PC gaming, and the comfort and build quality is unmatched by anything else. Brand new are £1,000, which seems crazy, but if you sit at a computer desk for thousands of hours, you realize it's actually quite cheap. Story 31. Went from $20 pillows to spending $170 on a pillow, and I noticed an immediate difference in no more constant soreness in my neck and shoulder blades. If you're going to be keeping it for a few years anyway, it is well worth the investment. I actually just went back recently to replace mine with the same pillow model, and it was a BOGO sale going on at Sleep Country. So if you find one of those, then you're set for many years. Story 32. When you need a new car battery, buy the best one you can afford. Don't cheap out. If one has 550 cold cranking amps and another one has 850 cold cranking amps, go for the 850. The icing on the cake is that the better batteries normally come with an extra year warranty. If you live in a place with extreme weather, you will get a new battery every 4th year for free. Story 33. Most expensive tech has longer longevity and is worth the investment. It's not the best example, but you know those cheap Xbox controllers you can buy at Walmart for like $25? Those are a major ripoff. The components wear out very fast. One had stick drift the same week for me. The mic quality is insanely bad, and if you so much as drop it once, the controller dies on the spot and will never turn on again. I owned a lot of these before I got an Elite controller a couple years ago. Works the exact same as the day I bought it, with almost no issue other than a bunk RB button, which I was able to map to the back buttons. Story 34. If you live in a snowy area or you go to places that are muddy, those floor mats for your car. I know it might seem useless, but cleaning carpets in cars really sucks. With the floor liner, you just pull that thing out once every 2-3 months and spray it down with a hose to wash off all the salted road goo or mud or whatever else gets into your car instead of ruining your carpets. Story 35. I have lived in a climate with cold winters my entire life. Only in the last few years have I spent what I consider to be a lot of money on my winter coat and boots. It really is worth it. My Arc'teryx coat is so thin it's easy to move around in, but it keeps me toasty warm. It's like magic. Also, good sheets are definitely worth it. Story 36. A nice hybrid vehicle. Bought one for the wife 2 years ago, and it's completely changed how we drive. Slower and safer. And gas mileage has been excellent. Definitely worth the price. The gas version without all the bells and whistles was about 15-20K less for reference. Story 37. Quality sungles. I used to buy $15 shades. I'd go through so many pairs in a year. The frames fall to pieces. They scratch so easily. I bought some $150 Ray-Bans, and damn, they can take so much abuse. Definitely much cheaper in the long run, plus much more satisfying to use. I now pick them up on eBay for like $65. Story 38. Good shoes. I don't mean the ones that'll last 10 years. I mean the ones that are comfortable to wear for 8-10 hours while on your feet. I grew up wearing cheap shoes and could never spend more than $50, $60 on shoes as an adult. My work started a thing where they reimburse employees for certain purchases, and one of them is shoes. I have a pair of Hoka and a pair of Brooks. I don't gave to wear a knee brace anymore, and my hips and back feel so much better. Absolutely worth the price. I'm still going to buy them even if my job stops reimbursing me. Story 39. Movers. Living in NYC all my adult life and moving quite often when I was younger, I always cheaped out and did it myself likin'. Finally did the smart thing on my last move years ago, and the joy of no back spasms from carrying boxes of books, etc. down and up stories of stairs is worth every penny. Story 40. Legal advice. Paid over $16K to get my anti-vax conspiracy theorist mother to allow grandma to get vaccinated against COVID. My mother called every lawyer in town to try and find someone to represent her, and every single lawyer refused. The one that actually bothered to talk to her said, "If you're offered a deal, take the deal. This doesn't end well for you." I know this because my aunt that is way into spiritual woo-woo, but still believes in science and medicine was giving me the inside scoop. So we offered a deal and Mom took it. Grandma got vaccinated. And just in time, COVID ripped through her old age home 2 weeks later. But nobody died because everyone was vaccinated. Shocking. Story 41. Good quality headphones. They can seem pricey, but the difference in sound quality and comfort is huge, especially if you wear them a lot. Plus, they last a lot longer, so you actually end up saving money over time compared to constantly replacing cheaper ones. Totally worth it. Story 42. Booking a discount hotel room through one of those third parties can end up way more HL than booking direct. It's easier to cancel, reschedule, get refunds, or have your preferences acknowledged. Plus, they won't sell you rooms they don't have. Every third party, like Expedia, will sell rooms that aren't available. Blame the hotel and keep the money while some poor sap is stuck sleeping in his car. Story 43. As a former chef and someone who still cooks all the time, I say high-quality kitchen equipment. I pay more for one knife than most people pay for all the knives they own. I've had the same knives for almost 40 years and they still are perfect. They hold an edge and are perfectly balanced. I also own very thick and heavy French-made copper pots and pans, which also cost a fortune, but so worth it. I also have a robot coupe food processor that cost me about $700 in used condition that is so powerful and solid that I'm sure I could puree an entire human being should the need ever arise. Story 44. If you enjoy food and cooking by getting a good olive oil instead of cheap, sometimes the cheap ones are good, but depends. Other things would be hobby-related, like with sewing. You can start with cheap one if you're unsure what you like and not. But then when sure to sew for long-term, a good sturdy sewing machine is worth to pay more. Story 45. Merino wool socks. I used to buy a pack of socks and they would last my maybe 6 months until they had too many holes to wear. Bought a pair of merino wool socks and game changer. Slightly hotter but comfortable year-round. They dry your feet. They keep your feet from smelling. Mine used to be terrible with cotton, and they have lasted 2 years so far. Oh, and they have a lifetime warranty if you buy from Darn Tough or Grip 6, which hopefully they honor well. The best perk to me is my feet don't smell horrendous anymore, only slightly bad. Story 46. Good tires with Kevlar. I should have been stuck on the freeway many times, but because the tires never fully puncture, it becomes a very slow release of air, so I drive home as if nothing happened and only notice it the next morning when the tire is deflated. It's better to be stuck at home than on the freeway with cars going 60 plus mph. Story 47. Anything that saves you time. We pick up pre-cut veggies, deveined shrimp, skinless chicken breasts, etc. Things we can toss into a pot or pant for quick, healthy meals instead of ordering takeout. The time saved in prep and cleaning adds up. I'd be happy if we switched to paper plates too, LOL. Not there yet. Story 48. Loads of people on it. But honestly, YouTube Premium. I had Google Music before that and used Google Movies/TV. That was fantastic BTW, and when they integrated it into YouTube, they ate up the movies bit. But for the price of a Spotify subscription, I get access to ad-free YouTube, all the movies I own, and unlimited music. Plus, the service pays better per listen than most other services last I checked. All this costs the same as the old Google Play Music subscription that I had before anyway, so it's not like I'm losing out. Story 49. Proper winter boots, running shoes. I walk my dogs 24/7, 365, and depending on the weather, I either need boots that will tolerate cold down to 30°C or running shoes that are either studded or have soles that don't slip in the snow, and all this while being pulled by 3 powerful dogs. Oh yeah, and an insulated jacket that doesn't need replacing every year, and thermal underwear. Story 50, a power generator when there's a blackout situation. My mom wanted to get one after we had to deal with a blackout thanks to a nasty storm knocking out the power system for hours. Look, even if for a temporary solution and just for one area in your home, it's nice to have the option. It depends where you live though, but there are kinds that can be used indoors like the solar ones. Story 51, a good mattress. I've had a pinched nerve recently, and I couldn't imagine have to suffer through the night with that on a tie mattress that would aggravate my sciatica every night. With my Temper mattress, there is no pressure point so I can sleep somewhat comfortably, I guess as much as you can with nerve pain, with a pillow to prop my legs up. Story 52. If you like watching movies, especially on 4K Blu-rays, high-end TVs, a lot of people see 2 TVs of the same size and pixel count and think they must be pretty much the same. But the difference in color depth, color accuracy, brightness, black levels, and contrast ratio is mive. You don't need the absolute latest. A lot of money can be saved buying refurbished and buying the previous year's model. But man, a high-end TV, especially paired to a great sound system, makes for an amazing experience. Story 53, custom orthotics. I have really messed up feet and struggled for years to find shoes that were comfortable. I went to a custom orthotics place, and my feet are 8E wide, and I have been wearing 4E shoes. Additionally, I have club foot and a high arch that has fallen. There are only a few places that do this kind of work, and there is an old lady near me who does it, so I said, why not? My wife wore my new shoes after I got them, and she said they were painful to wear as someone who had functional feet. I went 40 years of my life without orthotics, and I can't go back. Story 54. I know this is niche and obviously not for everyone. I run an Amish store. It's a real Amish company that I run a branch of. We make and build all kinds of outdoor items and projects: furniture, playsets, sheds, pavilions, custom garages, decks, fencing, etc. I have people come in to buy furniture that get why it's more and some that don't. But we use the highest grade poly on the market, and our furniture is rated to last about 50 years. It has a full warranty for 20 years. I will see people say, oh, I love this $3,000 set so much, but that's too much, I can't justify spending that. Then they'll go to Lowe's or somewhere similar and buy a $1,000 set that lasts 2-3 years if they leave it out, or 5 if they take great care of it. By the time 20 years has PD and inflation occurs, they'll have spent double and wasted an insane amount of time on 5+ sets. I never quite understand it, especially when I have people that come in that bought their furniture from us 10+ years ago, and it's been through blizzards and still looks brand new. It irks me. Story 55. Hand tools. $100 for something like a hammer seems silly, but not when it's the only hammer you'll ever have to buy for the rest of your life. High-quality steel can last decades on decades. Some of the tools I use are around 100 years old and still going strong, all because of the high-quality steel. Story 56. A good desktop computer, especially if you are a gamer or work with video editing and 3D rendering, etc. I've had my previous desktop computer for 11 years. It lasted from 2011 to 2022. Well, it still works, but I've given it away because I selected fairly good components without going into diminishing returns like going absolutely top of the line. More RAM than was usual. 8 GB were not even then norm yet in 2011, and my PC had 16. I only switched graphics cards twice during that time and added an SSD. Otherwise, the system was unchanged. Okay, replaced hard disks as they were left from an even older PC and failed when I had the PC for 3 years. But the core parts? CPU i7 Sandy Bridge 2600K, RAM and motherboard were still the same over a decade later. Story 57. If you ride a motorcycle, in Northern Europe at least, get some genuinely waterproof kit. There's a lot of kit in the market that says it's waterproof but actually isn't in anything bar a light shower. I bought a jacket in 2011 that's still waterproof today in all but the heaviest, most prolonged downpour. I'm thinking driving rain for 8+ hours. On every other occasion, I've been dry when other riders have been complaining that their kit is leaking. Story 58. A good couch. Everyone always says a good mattress, and while that is true, it's also an obvious answer. People don't think about their couches enough, but aside from your mattress, your couch is probably the single piece of furniture you spend the most time on. It's got to be comfy and supportive. Quality couches are expensive as hell. Story 59. A pair of good headphones, $300-$400. I have bought so many cheap pieces of headphones. My $300 Sony WH-1000XM4 lasted me 3 years. I used them every day for work, gym, etc. The only reason I had to replace them is because I broke it. Completely my fault. If I hadn't broke them, they would have lasted me years longer. I was willing to drop another $300 to replace them because they really are my favorite headphones. Story 60. This one can be a bit contentious, but your computer parts. My current PC was $6,500 when I embled it 6 years ago. 64 gigs of RAM, i9 9900K CPU, 3.6 GHz, and an RTX 2080 Ti. Other than games that want heavy amounts of ray tracing, it still plays brand new titles on max graphics without a single problem. Even spent about a year mining Bitcoin on it when I wasn't using it, and so far so good. Hell, playing Star Citizen, I get higher frame rates than a lot of people I know with newer computers. Now, to be fair, while at the time the GPU was almost half that total cost, $3,200, I did splurge on the hard drives. A 1TB NVMe that was about $700 then, and 2x4 terabytes SSDs for $450 each. So you could easily knock off a fair bit of that price in the drives alone. I built my first PC in 2005. My second in 2010, and my third in 2018. The only reason I built the second when I did was because the first was with my parents, and they offered to pay for the second so they could keep it. Then the third only happened when it did not because there was anything wrong with the second, but because due to an IRS snafu with my taxes, they thought there was fraud when there wasn't, and I ended up having paid more than I was supposed to, so I got a much higher return than expected after the interest for the delayed payout applied. I happened to have the funds and said, screw it, let's go. But pretty much my PCs so far last well into 8 years without needing upgrades. Final note, if you're spending this much on a PC, don't cheap out on your power supply. Very high quality ones only cost like $50-$80 more than the cheap ones, and that's a tiny fraction of the total cost on your PC. Story 61, a quality UPS battery backup surge protector. My area has regular surges, like quick flickers of power off and on. A recent surge took out my PSU and surge protector. This time I bought a UPS. Last surge that happened, I only noticed it happened because my UPS made a noise that it was switching to battery mode. 110% worth the money spent. For a PC, I recommend getting CyberPower. Just make sure you get the correct wattage for how much you are backing up. I have a 900-watt UPS with a 3080 Ti and an ultra-wide monitor, and it almost always sits at half load. Story 62. I bought an e-bike and it saves me a ton of money on gas. I still drive when I need to, but during the warmer seasons, I fill my tank up maybe once a month, plus the health benefits and time saved for many things. Instead of hitting the gym, I can go for a ride, run errands, and get a workout in all at the same time. For things that are nearby or even things that are further out but have traffic, you save time there too. For example, going to a busy park, I don't have to drive around for 10 minutes to find parking. You could do all these things with this regular bike, but with an e-bike, you can take it easy when you want. Going somewhere and don't want to get sweaty? Ibike is great for that. Tired and don't want to ride all the way back home? Ibike makes the ride easy and fast. Want to take a bunch of stuff with you? You'll barely notice the added weight. I have a Bosch bike that can have some expensive upkeep with the main components like motor, battery, and the internally geared hub, but it's about what you would spend on a car, and so far, I've only had to replace the hub in the 4 years I've had it. Story 63, little different than most answers here, but Loungefly. They are actually amazing quality, hold up over years of use, hold way more than they look, and can help express yourself in subtle and cly ways. My personality was somewhat beat out as a kid, and I was afraid to express myself or any of my interests at all for the longest time. As ridiculous as it may sound, Loungefly saved me. At 27, I bought a very simple white Loungefly with small Sailor Moon items lightly scattered across the bag. I fought with myself about buying it for the longest time. People wouldn't immediately notice unless they decided to actually look at the bag and then compliment me on it. It was the bag they were complimenting, but it gave me a huge confidence boost. I now have quite a few Loungefly bags in different styles expressing a few of my different interests that I always get compliments on even after multiple wears. Sometimes people have seen the bag multiple times, but still each time, I love that bag. I really need to get one. It is so cute. Additionally, I've used my bags for weekend overnight trips as well. They look small as frick, but they pack a punch in how much I fit in them. So I get a nice bag without losing any practicality or functionality. Story 64, tools. I was a youngster and quite annoyed when tools broke, especially on a Sunday when every shop is closed. Then came my master and taught me about quality and brands. To support his statement, he gave me a 1/4 inches ratchet and told me to loosen the bolts of a wheel. I was hesitant due to having broken so many already, but it worked without a hitch. Ratchet was from Hazette, only quality tools since then. Story 65, skincare for my face. Not really too expensive, but when you live paycheck to paycheck, even a little bit extra hurts, and you'll ask yourself, why do you need that cleanser when you have body wash? And if you're unlucky, like me, you'll find out that's going to make it look like you washed your face with steel wool. Your face and teeth can ruin your health overall, so take care of those. Worth the investment. Story 66, #1 answer. A house. Yes, I know. Housing is so expensive today. Find a way. 27 years ago, I found a way to get a loan from my employer to plunk down 25% of my annual income as a down payment on my 5-bedroom house in the Silicon Valley. Now, I've long since paid off that loan and a second mortgage. And in 3 years, when everyone is paying $3K, $4K, or even $5K a month for a comparable house, my original mortgage will be paid off, and I'll be paying less than $500 a month for property taxes. And my house that I paid $279K for will be worth $2 million. Story 67. Nice symbols. I had basic professional level symbols for almost 2 decades, and I was very lucky to get them. And I couldn't imagine spending hundreds of dollars on Ks and Byzants and Istanbuls when I had over a half dozen symbols that sounded amazing. But better symbols unlocked whole new avenues of playing. They can be louder and quieter, whereas an A crash doesn't crash until close to full volume. I wasn't going to learn how to play jazz on cymbals till I bought real jazz cymbals. I had a keyall-mate at Michigan whose parents bought her a 30,000 oboe when she got into the music conservatory. I've never spent more than $350 plus tax on a cymbal. I spent a few grand that I can afford, and I have a literally world CL collection of musical instruments and comfort objects, so fun to touch, so tactile, from Turkey, China, Switzerland, Germany, Canada, and those glorious Ks are made in Amherst. Worth the money.